We go now to public hearings on proposed ordinance 94, authorizing and setting a special parcel tax for fire protection and emergency medical service, and submitting a special parcel tax and question the establishment of district's appropriation limit on the qualified voters of the district. And with that, I'd like to have the fire chief open the public hearing with comments relating to the topics tonight.
I'd like to start with a presentation that we've done every public hearing for the benefit of the public and for those that are watching on TV. As proposed, we're talking about a special tax for fire and emergency medical services. Quickly about the fire department, we are responsible for protecting the 87 square miles that compose the 29 Palms Water District, and we do it from 2 fire stations, and we're responding to over 2,400 calls a year. A picture from our 50th anniversary in 2008. This is your fire department. Some of the faces have changed, but what you see there is the composition of the fire department as we know it today. Besides myself, there are 6 career personnel who are company officers, 2 captains and 4 engineers. I have a part-time administrative assistant. We have a volunteer chaplain who has been around as long as I have. And the real core of the fire department that gives us our daily staffing is we have 30 reserve firefighters who are volunteers. And to touch on those reserve firefighters, the vast majority of them do not live in this community. They're looking for careers in fire service. They have gone through a fire academy, and they drive to 29 Palms 1 day a week, and they're coming from places such as Torrance, Huntington Beach, San Bernardino, and I have one that comes from as far away as Ventura County. They drive up here 1 day a week, stand a 24-hour shift, and head back home to their regular jobs or family, and for that we reimburse them gas money. With this department and these personnel, we're able to provide daily staffing of 7 personnel a day. That's a duty officer who is myself or a captain, and at each fire station we have what is known as a 3-person engine company. That engine company is led by one of the career company officers, and then 2 of those reserve firefighters are on each engine. I point out the daily staffing to note this. With 7 personnel on duty each day, we are capable of handling 2 separate medical aids at a time. We can handle a medical aid and a minor traffic collision. If we wind up with a traffic collision that has multiple patients or that may have extrication required, that's going to require both engine companies. But we think about fire, and if we have a fire in a single-family residence, which is the most likely fire that we could have in a structure within this community, the national standard points to a need for 14 people to effectively deal with that single-family structure fire. As you can see, with our 7 personnel and with the assistance of a 4-person engine company responding from the base, we're still only putting 11 personnel on the fire ground at a structure fire. Next thing I'd like to touch on is community insurance rating. If you look closely, you see 2 diamonds. They represent a 5-mile diamond or response out from each fire station. And if you live within one of those diamonds and you have a hydrant within 1,000 feet of your business or residence, you receive what is known as a Class 4 rating from the Insurance Services Office. If you're outside one of those diamonds, or if you are more than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, you wind up in what we call a Class 9 rating. The effect of a Class 9 rating is shown here, to where your insurance rates could increase anywhere from 11 up to 31%. Something to keep in mind as we go forward through this. Talk about fire department funding. Over 95% of the fire department funding is provided by the current special tax. By law, water revenues, what you see on your water bill, the water charges, the ready to serve, and the water availability assessment that is on property owners' tax bill, none of that money can be used to support fire department operations. In addition, this particular fire department receives no portion of the 1% ad valorem property tax, nor do we benefit from sales tax or transient occupancy tax like cities and counties do. Since the mid-1980s, we have been operating on, in essence, what is a special tax. In the early years, it was actually what was known as benefit assessment. It was started in 1985 at a dollar amount of $33.85. By 1984, it had been increased to $57. Over that first 10 years, that's a 68% increase. In the mid-90s, the voters of the state of California approved Proposition 218, which basically made it illegal, or we could no longer proceed with imposing the benefit assessment in the fashion that we had. That forced us to go to the voters for a special tax in June of 1997, and the rate was set at $54, and there was no inflation adjuster. That passed with approximately 72% of the voters, and it was estimated at that time that it would be adequate for 5 years. It actually went for 8 years before another increase. During most of that time, we were staffing 1 fire station, but for the last 2 years of that tax, we were actually staffing 2 fire stations. In March of 2005, we passed what is known as Measure J, and that is the current tax that is in place. What was very clear in that ballot measure was that it would be good for staffing 2 fire stations for an estimated 8 years. And once again, there was no inflation adjuster. Because there was no inflation adjuster, we knew going in and saying that it would be good for an estimated 8 years, that in the early years of collecting that tax and expending funds, that we would be putting money in the fund balance, because in the latter years, we would have to be taking money out of fund balance. And as you can see by this graph, that's exactly what we've done. And the reason that we're now going forth looking for another increase, we are obviously taking money out of fund balance, or we are deficit spending. But it's in line with the plan that we set in 2005. As a comparison, if you're wondering what it costs to provide fire protection, this is just a quick look at the cost of fire protection. In 29 Palms, the per capita cost right now for fire protection is approximately $70 per person. As you can see by some of the other desert cities, Adelanto, Apple Valley, Barstow, their per capita cost is anywhere from close to $100 up to over $165 per person. What we have in front of us tonight is proposed Ordinance 94. It's proposed to go into effect on July 1st, 2013, keeping with the promise that we made to the voters in 2005 that we would not seek another tax increase for 8 years. This proposed ordinance looks to increase the special tax from $80 to $120 per unit. Tonight, there are 2 alternatives in front of the board. One that has an inflation adjuster of 4% per year. The second alternative proposes to have an inflation adjuster that is $6 per year. What it proposes to do is maintain the current service level at 2 fire stations. And if you go back to that slide where I was talking about the number of personnel needed to be on the fire ground for a structure fire, one thing we're looking at with the increased calls is that in approximately 2017, we are looking to add a 2-person patrol, and those people would also cross-staff the truck at Fire Station 421. We will continue to be a department that is a combination of career and volunteer staff, and this proposed ordinance provides some long-term stability for the department. If there is no tax increase by 2013, we will see a drastic reduction in our current service level. It's going to result in extended response times to emergency calls, and those 2 diamonds that you saw around the 2 fire stations, my prediction is that at least one of those diamonds is going to go completely away, and a half of this district will probably be facing a Class 9 rating on insurance, if not the entire district facing a Class 9 rating on insurance, and homeowners and commercial property owners will see the effect of that.
What you're saying is that a station is going to be closed.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And let me emphasize that with insurance ratings, there are some changes that are coming to where they look at the total overall personnel that are on duty within a district. And if we lose some of our staffing, it might affect the entire district, not just the area around one fire station. To implement ordinance 80 or 94, first it must be approved by the board of directors, and that option is in front of the board tonight. If the board approves ordinance 94, it would be placed in front of the voters as a special mail ballot with a election date of April 17, 2012. The ballots would actually be mailed to the registered voter approximately 4 weeks in advance. It requires a 2/3 voter approval of those that cast a vote. If the ordinance 94 receives 2/3 voter approval, once again, it would not become effective until July 1st of 2013.
Agenda item 2, consideration of possible action to adopt proposed ordinance 94 authorizing and setting special tax for fire protection and emergency medical services and submitting a special parcel tax and question to establish the district's appropriations limit to the qualified voters of their district. And the material provided on agenda item 3, the obvious issues are between 4% and $6. And in my opinion, now I'm going to hold it. I'd like to start with the fire chief. Do you have anything to say?
Just as stated in the memo, there are two alternatives that are placed in front of you. One is the 4%, the other one is the 6%. Some final language was cleaned up within the ordinance. As noted, it does include within this ordinance that there would be, if passed and approved by the voters, there would be the formation of a 5-member volunteer oversight committee to monitor expenditures of the special tax. And one of the language cleanups in this ordinance was that the duties of the oversight committee defines the duties of the oversight committee, and it clearly states that the committee members shall have no authority to direct staff of the district. Other than that, entertain questions.
Bo?
I move we adopt ordinance 94, alternative number 2.
With the $6 per year annual increase?
Thank you, yes.
I second that.
Any more discussion? No. Roll call vote.
Director Barrikas?
Aye.
Director Chambers?
Aye.
Director Cisneros?
Aye?
Director Moore?
Aye.
Director Schinover?
Aye.